Hello, my name is Jackson Poller. I'm 28 years old, and my life, at least up to this point, has been like a straight path I've carved out amidst the winding twists of my family. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, where the smoky aroma of BBQ wafts through the streets, making everyone pause to savor it. It's the scent of warmth, of summer afternoons spent on the porch with friends, nibbling on smoky ribs slathered in tangy sweet sauce. But for me, Kansas City is also the place I chose to build my independence. Far from the old house in the suburbs, where childhood memories still haunt me like persistent shadows that refuse to let go. I work as a civil engineer for a large company downtown. My job involves drafting designs for skyscrapers and sturdy bridges that span the Missouri River. I love the feeling of holding a pencil, drawing precise lines on paper, knowing that each stroke will transform into concrete and steel, standing strong against storms. I'm hardworking, rational, and have been independent from a young age, perhaps because I had no other choice. Starting at 16, I worked part-time on construction sites, saving every penny to pay for college. Not because my family was poor. My parents are middle class, with my dad a bank employee and my mom an elementary school teacher, but because I wanted to prove I could stand on my own 2 feet without anyone's pity or indulgence. But when it comes to family, things start to get complicated. My dad, Dennis Poller, is a conservative man who likes everything to follow old-school rules. He believes men must be strong, the backbone of the family. But he applied this belief in a skewed way with his 2 sons. My mom, Sharon, is gentler, but she has a fatal flaw. She spoils my younger brother to the point of blindness. That younger brother is Drew, 5 years my junior, who just graduated with a college degree now hanging loosely on his wall. From a young age, Drew was my polar opposite. I vividly remember our childhood days in the 2-story wooden house in suburban Kansas City, with a backyard full of green grass and an old swing set. I was the well-behaved kid, happy to sit in a corner reading books or assembling model cars. Drew? He was like a small tornado, always demanding and aggressive when he didn't get his way. If I got a new toy, Drew would scream until he had it, and if I refused, he'd smash everything around him. Once when Drew was 5, he wanted to play with my ball, a birthday gift from Dad, but I was using it to kick around with the neighborhood kids. Drew threw a tantrum, then suddenly rushed at me, punching and kicking wildly. When our parents came out, instead of scolding Drew, Mom hugged and soothed him. "Come on, Jackson, let your brother have it, he's still little." Dad shook his head and told me, "You're older, you need to let your brother have his way." I was only 10, but I felt a surge of resentment, as if I were an outsider in my own home. That habit of Drew's grew over the years. He learned that being aggressive and destructive got him what he wanted. My parents never disciplined him seriously. They always gave in, always made excuses. "He's still young," they'd say, even when Drew was 12 or 13. I was different. I tried to guide my brother, but every time I did, I was stopped. "Don't yell at your brother, Jackson," Mom would say, her voice full of reproach. "You're the older one, you need to yield." I felt powerless, like I was fighting alone against a system I couldn't change. There's one memory that still makes me tremble when I think of it. It was the summer when I was 15 and Drew was 10. Our neighbor had a boy named Tommy, Drew's age, who had just gotten a shiny new red bicycle with a jingling bell. Tommy proudly rode it around the yard, and Drew saw it, his eyes gleaming. "Let me ride it," Drew demanded. Tommy shook his head. "No, my dad said only I can ride it." Drew's face turned red and he stormed off without a word. I thought that was the end of it, but that night, while everyone was asleep, I heard strange noises outside. I woke up, looked out the window, and my heart stopped. Drew was sneaking around with Dad's matchbox, setting fire to Tommy's bike, the one Tommy had left in the yard because he forgot to lock it. The flames shot up quickly, illuminating Drew's face with a satisfied grin. I ran outside, yelling, "Drew, what are you doing?" But it was too late. The bike was charred black, Tommy was crying from next door, and our parents rushed out. Drew feigned panic. I was just playing, I didn't mean to. My parents believed him completely. They hugged and comforted him. It's okay, it was an accident. They even paid for a new bike for Tommy to settle things quietly and scolded me for yelling and waking everyone up. Why didn't you keep an eye on your brother? Dad said, his voice full of blame. Standing in the yard, looking at the ashes of the bike, I felt a mix of anger and fear. Drew had burned not just the bike, but also my belief in fairness within our family. Memories like that piled up. Drew grew up with a habit of bullying to get his way. At school, he'd fight with friends if he wasn't prioritized, and our parents always defended him. He was bullied first. I, on the other hand, learned to be independent and stay out of trouble. At 18, I left home for college in the city, working all sorts of jobs to support myself. I graduated with honors and landed a stable job at the construction company. Now, at 28, I live in a small but cozy apartment downtown Kansas City with a balcony overlooking the river. I love early mornings, brewing black coffee, sketching designs while listening to the hum of traffic below. My life is stable, with clear goals. Most importantly, I'm about to marry Nicole Walsh, the most wonderful woman I've ever met. Nicole is my fiancée, a 27-year-old marketing specialist at an advertising firm. We met at a local BBQ joint, classic Kansas City style, when I was sitting alone after work and she walked in with a radiant smile. Nicole is smart, independent, and has a calm but resolute personality. She supports me unconditionally, always reminding me that life doesn't always require patience. "Jax, you deserve to be happy," she often says, hugging me tightly. We plan to get married later this year, a simple wedding with friends and colleagues. I haven't told Nicole much about my family because I don't want to drag her into that mess. But deep down, I know the shadows of my past are lurking, waiting for a chance to erupt. And Drew? My brother is now 23, fresh out of college with a business degree, but instead of finding a stable job, he dreams of getting rich quick through startups. "Bro, I'll be a millionaire before 30, he brags during our phone calls, his voice full of excitement. He's the young and reckless type, always talking about shady business ideas like cryptocurrency investments or multi-level marketing. I listen but don't put much faith in it. Drew still carries his old traits, aggressive, selfish, and convinced he's the center of the universe. A few weeks ago, on a rainy evening in Kansas City, I came home exhausted after a late shift, my body aching from hours spent drafting designs for a new overpass for the Missouri River project. Nicole was in the kitchen preparing our favorite grilled chicken salad, a go-to meal for tiring days. My phone buzzed on the table, the screen flashing "Drew." I hesitated for a second, then answered, trying to sound cheerful. "Hey Drew, long time no see, what's up?" Drew's voice came through fast and excited as always. "Jackson, bro, I've got a golden opportunity. I ran into an old college buddy who's starting a crypto company. We need capital to buy mining equipment and run ads. Just $30,000 man, I swear in 6 months we'll double or triple the profit. Please lend me the money." I froze, my hand gripping the glass of water, my heart pounding. $30,000? That's a huge sum, nearly half a year's worth of savings, money I'd set aside for my wedding with Nicole and a down payment on a small house. I know Drew too well. He's always been into get-rich-quick schemes, but they never pan out. Last year, he sank $5,000 from our parents into a delivery app startup, lost it all, and blamed it on market fluctuations. Now crypto? The plan sounded shady with no detailed proposal or numbers, just empty promises. "Drew, I've thought it through," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "I can't lend you the money, it's a lot, and I don't trust crypto schemes. You should find a stable job first, build some experience." Silence hung on the line for a few seconds. Then Drew's tone shifted from excited to angry. "What's that supposed to mean? You're so selfish. You've got a good job, a place, a fiancé, and I'm just trying to make it. We're brothers and you won't help me. Who do you think you are?" I felt the blood rush to my face but held my temper. "It's not about being selfish, Drew. I just don't want to lose money on a bad bet. You know I'm careful with finances." He scoffed, his voice sharp through the speaker. "Careful? Or just stingy? Mom and Dad were right, you're too cold. Fine, keep your precious money, but don't regret it when I make it big without you." He hung up abruptly, leaving a long beep echoing in my ear. I sank into a chair, my hands trembling. Nicole came out of the kitchen looking worried. "Drew again? What did he want?" I told her everything, and she hugged me, whispering, "You did the right thing. Don't let him manipulate you." But deep down, unease stirred. I knew Drew wouldn't let this go. Since childhood, when he didn't get his way, he always found a way to retaliate. Like when he burned Tommy's bike or smashed Mom's favorite vase because he wasn't allowed a new phone. Now, with such a large sum at stake, I feared he'd do something reckless. Sure enough, 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Mom, her voice trembling as if she'd been crying. "Jackson, why did you turn your brother down? Drew told me everything. He's so upset, screaming all night. You're his older brother. You're supposed to support him, help him just this once. Brothers need to stick together." I sighed, sitting on my apartment balcony watching the Missouri River glimmer under the sunset. "Mom, I can't. Drew needs to learn to stand on his own, not keep asking for loans. His plan's unclear and I'm afraid of losing the money." She cut me off, her voice rising. "Lose money? You think your own brother would scam you? He's your flesh and blood. Your father thinks so too. You need to help Drew start his business. You have the money. Why won't you lend it? Do you hate him?" Her words cut like a knife. I don't hate Drew, I'm just tired of the lifelong favoritism. Growing up, I was always pushed into the role of the older brother who must give in. When I graduated college, my parents sent a congratulatory card. When Drew graduated, they threw a big party and bragged to the neighbors. Now they're pressuring me to lend him money. "Mom, I can't lend Drew the money. I have my own plans. For the wedding and our future." She sniffled. "You're so selfish, Jackson. I'm disappointed in you." Then she hung up. I sat there, my heart heavy. Dad called right after, his voice stern like when I was a kid. "Jackson, listen to me. Brothers help each other. Drew's young, he needs capital to soar. Lend him the money. Your mom and I will cover it if anything goes wrong." I shook my head, though he couldn't see. "Dad, no. I'm sorry." He sighed in disappointment and hung up. My whole family turned their backs on me just because I refused to bail out my delusional little brother. The days that followed were tense. Drew texted nonstop, sometimes begging, "I really need this, just 30 grand. Other times threatening, "You'll regret this." I blocked his number, but the anxiety lingered. Nicole noticed and took me for a walk by the river, holding my hand tightly. "Jax, you're not wrong. Don't let them sway you." We talked for hours about our future, our new family. But at night I lay awake thinking about Drew. What would he do next? It felt like a ticking time bomb. Then, a week later, Drew showed up unannounced at my apartment door. I opened it to find him standing there, face flushed, eyes wild. "Jackson, we need to talk." I let him in, trying to stay calm. Nicole was in the bedroom, but I knew she was listening. Drew sat down, his voice trembling. "Jax, I'm sorry about last time, but I really need the money. My friend's waiting, and the opportunity's slipping away. Lend it to me, I'll pay you back bit by bit." I shook my head. "Drew, I've already said no." He shot up from the chair, his face contorted with rage. "You're an asshole. You think you're better than me? Just because you've got a stable job, you look down on me? Fine, you'll see." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. My heart raced. I ran after him, but he was gone. Nicole hugged me from behind. "Are you okay?" I nodded, but inside, fear surged. Drew isn't the type to give up easily. The following days felt suffocating. My parents kept calling, pressuring me. I stood my ground, but each call was like a fresh wound. I started avoiding home, throwing myself into work. The overpass designs became my refuge, a place where I could control things. But deep down, I knew the conflict was just beginning. Drew wouldn't stop. For the first time, I felt I had to prepare for a real fight. Nicole stood by me, whispering, "We'll get through this." I hoped so. But that night, lying beside her, I dreamed of Drew standing outside my door, holding a matchbox, smirking. I woke up drenched in sweat. The storm was coming, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to weather it. The days that followed were a struggle to focus on work. The technical drawings, the precise lines of the Missouri River overpass, were where I found peace. But every time my phone buzzed, my heart clenched, fearing it was Drew or my parents. I had blocked Drew's number, but my parents kept calling, their voices alternating between pleading and accusing. I tried to keep life normal. Nicole and I planned our wedding, picking flowers and venues. Her radiant smile as she tried on her wedding dress sparked a flicker of light in my heart. But Drew's shadow loomed. I started noticing small things: a strange car parked near our building, an odd noise in the hallway at night. I told myself I was imagining things, but the unease grew. Then came Dad's birthday. Mom insisted on throwing a big party at their suburban Kansas City home. "You have to come, Jackson," she said over the phone, her tone both commanding and pleading. "Your dad wants the whole family together." I didn't want to go. The thought of facing Drew made me shudder. But Nicole held my hand and said, "Jax, you need to face them. If you avoid this, they'll think you're weak." She was right. I couldn't let Drew and my parents' favoritism control me forever. So, I agreed, bringing my laptop to finish a critical design, the overpass project my boss had high hopes for. The party took place on a cool Kansas City afternoon, the smell of BBQ from the backyard grill filling the air. The old house was unchanged, red-tiled roof, lush green lawn, and the swing set where I used to read as a kid. But the atmosphere inside was heavy. My parents welcomed Nicole and me warmly, but their eyes lit up with pride for Drew. He strutted around in an expensive dress shirt, hair slicked with gel, acting like royalty. "Jackson, Nicole, long time no see," he said with a fake smile. I nodded, keeping calm, but my grip tightened. The party was lively, with neighbors, family, friends, and relatives. I tried to blend in, chatting about work and the wedding. Nicole shone, sharing our honeymoon plans. But I noticed Drew watching us, his gaze hostile. He drank beer after beer, his voice growing louder, boasting about his crypto project I'd refused to fund. "Jackson doesn't believe in me," he told a neighbor, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But he'll see. I'm gonna make it big." I sipped my water quietly, refusing to take the bait. Midway through the party, I had to work. The overpass project was due Monday, and I didn't want to let my boss down. I excused myself from my parents, set up my laptop at a small table in the backyard near the neighbor's pool, the same spot where I'd once watched Drew burn Tommy's bike. I opened the laptop, focused on the designs, trying to block out the tense atmosphere. Nicole sat beside me, scrolling on her phone, occasionally squeezing my hand. Then Drew appeared. He stood in front of me, beer bottle in hand, eyes bloodshot. "Jackson, still glued to your laptop? Work's more important than Dad's birthday, huh?" His tone was provocative. I looked up, staying calm. "Drew, I've got work to do. Can you leave me alone?" He smirked, stepping closer. "Work? Drawing bridges to slave away for life? You're so boring." I didn't respond, focusing on the screen. But in a flash, I saw his hand move. Before I could react, Drew snatched my laptop and held it over his head. "Let me help you relax," he yelled and threw it straight into the pool. The splash echoed, water spraying everywhere. I shot to my feet, heart pounding, blood rushing to my head. "Drew, what the hell are you doing?" I roared, rushing to the pool's edge. The laptop sank to the bottom, its screen flickering weakly before going dark. It held the entire project, months of work, not fully backed up. I spun around to face Drew. He stood there, smirking, feigning surprise. "Oops, sorry bro, my hand slipped." Nicole ran to me, grabbing my arm, her eyes a mix of anger and worry. "Jackson, stay calm," she whispered, but I couldn't. The party crowd went silent, all eyes on us. My parents rushed out from the house, Mom asking, "What's going on?" Drew jumped in. "Mom, it was an accident. I'm sorry." Dad looked at me and shook his head. "Jackson, don't make a scene. It's just an accident." I felt like I'd been slapped. "An accident?" I shouted, voice trembling with rage. "That laptop had my entire project, months of work. Drew did it on purpose and you don't see it?" Mom rushed to hug Drew as if he were the victim. "Jackson, calm down. Your brother apologized. It's your dad's birthday." Dad nodded. "Buy a new laptop. Don't make a fuss. Neighbors are watching." I stood there watching my parents defend Drew just like always. Nicole squeezed my hand, whispering, "Jax, let it go." But I couldn't. I looked at the pool where my laptop lay drowned and felt a rage I'd never known. "No," I said, voice cold as stone. "Not this time." I turned to Drew, locking eyes with him. "You think you can get away with anything, don't you?" "Not anymore, Drew." He smirked, but I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "You threatening me? Go ahead, do something." He turned and stormed back into the house, leaving me by the pool, trembling with anger. Nicole pulled me back, hugging me tightly. "Jackson, stay calm. We'll handle this, but not today." That night back home, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the balcony, staring at the shimmering Missouri River, my mind racing. The overpass project, my shot at a promotion, was now at risk. I'd backed up some of it to the cloud, but the critical final edits were on the laptop. I imagined facing my boss, explaining the delay. But more than that, I ached from the injustice. Drew didn't just sabotage my work, he was shielded by my parents, as if I were the one in the wrong. Nicole sat beside me, holding my hand. "Jax, I think it's time Drew faced consequences." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. I didn't want to escalate things or tear the family apart, but I couldn't keep tolerating this. "I know," I said, voice hoarse. "But if I confront Drew, Mom and Dad will side with him. I'll lose my whole family." She looked at me, eyes resolute. "You won't lose me, and you deserve respect." Her words warmed me like a flame, but they also scared me. I knew things would change from here on out. Drew had crossed a line, and I couldn't pretend nothing happened. But I wasn't ready for what was coming. That night I dreamed of the pool, but this time, it wasn't the laptop sinking. It was me, dragged down by Drew's hands while my parents stood by watching. The days following Dad's birthday party felt like living in a fog. Each morning I woke with a heaviness, as if a boulder were pressing on my chest. Work was a mess. I stayed up all night trying to recover the overpass project drawings from old cloud files, but the critical final edits were gone for good. My boss called me into his office, his tone stern. "Jackson, I trust you, but this project can't be delayed. Fix it fast." I nodded, apologized, but inside I wanted to scream about the injustice. I didn't tell him about Drew. How could I explain that my own brother sabotaged my work? At home, Nicole tried to pull me out of my obsession. She cooked delicious dinners, played soft jazz, and reminded me of our upcoming wedding. "Jax, we'll get through this," she said, squeezing my hand. But I saw the worry in her eyes. She knew I was wrestling with the urge to keep family peace and the rage boiling inside. I wanted to believe things would be okay, but deep down I knew Drew wasn't done. He was like a storm, quiet only before it hit harder. Then things escalated faster than I expected. One Wednesday morning, as I prepared to drive to work, I noticed the two right tires on my car were flat. I got out, checked them, and my heart sank when I saw a sharp cut on each tire. This wasn't an accident. Someone had slashed them. I looked around. Kansas City's streets were bright but empty. A chill ran down my spine. I knew exactly who did it. I called a mechanic, spending nearly $400 on new tires. That day I was late to work and my boss was clearly displeased. Nicole tried to comfort me. "You think it was Drew?" she asked. I nodded, my voice bitter. "It's him. He's retaliating." That afternoon I checked the building's security camera. And sure enough, blurry footage showed a familiar figure in a hoodie lurking near my car at midnight. Though the face wasn't clear, I recognized Drew's arrogant swagger instantly. I clenched my fists, wanting to punch the wall, but held back as Nicole watched. "You should call the police," she said firmly. I shook my head. "Not yet. If I escalate this, Mom and Dad will side with him. I don't want to push things further." Nicole looked at me, her eyes a mix of anger and sadness. "Jax, you can't let him keep doing this. Today it's tires. What's next?" I knew she was right, but I wasn't ready. Drew was my brother, no matter how he acted. I didn't want him in jail, I just wanted him to stop. But Drew didn't stop. 3 days later, I woke to the sound of shattering glass in the middle of the night. My heart pounded as Nicole grabbed my arm. "Jax, what was that?" I rushed to the living room and froze at the sight. The glass door to the balcony was shattered, fragments glinting under the streetlights. A brick lay on the floor next to a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I picked it up and read the scrawled words, "You'll regret this." Nicole stood behind me, gasping. "Drew," she whispered. I didn't speak, just clutched the paper. Rage surged, but fear crept in too. Drew wasn't just the kid who burned bikes or threw laptops anymore. He was becoming a real threat. I called a glazier, spending another $500, money meant for our wedding. This time, the security camera caught Drew clearly. He stood outside the building, threw the brick, and ran. I watched the footage over and over, seeing my brother's twisted face, my heart breaking. The next morning, I called my parents. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, Dad, Drew's destroying my life," I said, voice shaking with anger. "He slashed my tires, broke my balcony door. I have video proof. You need to control him or I'll call the police." I hoped they'd understand, do something. But Mom cried, "Jackson, how could you be so cruel? Drew's just impulsive. If you'd lent him the money, none of this would have happened." Dad was sterner. "You'd really call the police, put your brother in jail? I forbid you to do that. Family comes first." I hung up, hands shaking. They didn't just defend Drew, they blamed me. I felt betrayed, like I was the family outcast. Nicole hugged me. "Jax, you can't keep living like that. Drew's gone too far. If you don't act, he won't stop." I saw the resolve in her eyes. "I know," I whispered, "but I still hope. Hope Mom and Dad will see reason." Nicole shook her head. "They won't, Jax. They chose Drew long ago." The days that followed were filled with anxiety. Every noise outside made me jump. I installed more security cameras, checked the locks twice each night. My work suffered. I couldn't focus, always wondering what Drew would do next. My boss called me in, concerned. "Jackson, you okay?" "You look out of it." I forced a smile, lied that I was fine, but I knew I was falling apart. One evening, I sat on the balcony staring at the shimmering Missouri River. Nicole brought me coffee and sat beside me. "Jax, you need to decide," she said. "Either confront Drew or we'll live in fear forever." I looked at her, seeing the strength I lacked. "I'll call him," I said. "One last chance to stop." I called Drew, my voice calm but firm. "Drew, I know everything you've done. The tires, the glass, I have proof. Stop now or I'll go to the police." He laughed coldly over the phone. "Threatening me? You won't do anything. You always back down." Then he hung up. His words cut like a knife. I realized Nicole was right. I'd been backing down too long. This time I wouldn't. I saved the security footage, ready to send it to the police if needed. But inside I ached. Drew was my brother, my flesh and blood. I didn't want him in jail, but I couldn't let him destroy my life with Nicole either. The days after the balcony glass incident, I lived on edge. My nerves stretched taut like a wire. I desperately sought a way to resolve things peacefully, to keep my family from fracturing completely. Then a call from Mom shattered that fragile hope. "Jackson, come home for dinner this weekend," she said over the phone, her voice sweet as if nothing had happened. "I'm making your favorite BBQ ribs. Let's have a family gathering. Bring Nicole, too." I hesitated. The thought of a family dinner with Drew there made me shudder, but Mom pleaded, Please, Jackson, I want us to be close again. Don't let small things tear you brothers apart. Small things? I wanted to scream that Drew had slashed my tires, shattered my balcony door, and destroyed my laptop. Instead, I sighed. I'll think about it, Mom. When I told Nicole, she shook her head. Jax, you know this isn't just a normal dinner. They're trying to pull you back to make you go soft on Drew. She was right, but I still wanted to try. Maybe I thought if I confronted Drew face to face, I could put an end to this. Come with me, I said to Nicole. I need you there. She smiled, though her eyes were worried. Of course, Jax. We'll face it together. On Saturday afternoon, we drove to the old house in suburban Kansas City. The smell of freshly cut grass and BBQ smoke from the backyard stirred childhood memories, but this time I felt no warmth. I held Nicole's hand tightly as if afraid she'd vanish. When we walked in, Mom hugged me, her eyes teary. Jackson, I'm so glad you came. Dad, seated in his armchair, nodded at me, but his gaze was cold. Drew was nowhere in sight, and I dared to hope he wouldn't show. That hope vanished when Drew appeared just before dinner. He strode in, wearing an expensive dress shirt, hair slicked with gel, a smug smile on his face. Jackson, Nicole, long time no see, he said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. I nodded, keeping my composure. Nicole smiled politely, but I felt her grip tighten. Dinner began awkwardly. Mom bustled about, serving BBQ ribs, mashed potatoes, and corn salad, dishes I used to love. Dad shared stories about his banking job, but his eyes kept darting to Drew as if waiting for him to speak. I tried to engage, asking Mom about her backyard garden, praising Nicole for picking a beautiful wedding venue. But then Drew opened his mouth and everything slid downhill. Nicole, you picked that restaurant for the wedding? He said, his tone mocking. Kinda basic, huh? I thought Jackson made decent money. Why not go for something fancier? Nicole forced a smile, replying, We like simple, Drew. It's about the meaning. But Drew didn't stop. He laughed loudly, taking a swig of beer. Meaning? Bet you're saving up to let Jackson hoard the cash, right? He's so stingy, wouldn't even lend me 30 grand. Blood rushed to my face. Drew, that's enough, I said, my voice low but firm. He looked at me, his eyes flashing with defiance. What, Jackson? I'm just stating facts. You always cling to your money, never helping your brother. Nicole must have it rough with you. Nicole set her fork down, her gaze icy. Drew, you have no right to judge us. Focus on your own life. Mom quickly intervened. Come on, let's not get tense. Drew's just joking. But I saw Drew's eyes. It wasn't a joke. He was deliberately provoking us. Dinner continued, the atmosphere thick as fog. Drew drank more beer, his voice growing louder. He started boasting about his crypto project, acting like he was already a millionaire. I'll buy a house bigger than Jackson's, he said, staring at me. Unlike some people, just drawing bridges for hire. Dad chuckled, nodding. That's right, Drew's got big ambitions. I clenched my jaw, trying not to respond. Nicole squeezed my hand under the table, urging me to stay calm. Then things crossed the line. After dinner, everyone moved to the backyard where my parents had set up a small table with drinks and dessert. Drew, tipsy by now, followed Nicole when she got up to grab water. I was talking to Dad, but my eyes stayed on Drew. He stood too close to her, close enough that I saw her step back. Nicole, you're really pretty, he slurred, touching her shoulder. Jackson probably doesn't appreciate you. Let me take care of you. He laughed loudly, but the comment was crude, loaded with intent. Nicole pushed his hand away, her voice like ice. Drew, you've gone too far. Don't touch me. I shot to my feet, heart pounding. Drew, what the hell are you doing? I roared, stepping in front of Nicole. His face was flushed, but he kept that smug smirk. Relax, bro, just joking. Your fiancé's so sensitive, huh? This isn't a joke, I said, my voice trembling with anger. You're harassing Nicole. Stop it now or I won't let this slide. Mom rushed over, wrapping her arms around Drew. Jackson, what are you doing? Drew's drunk, he's just joking. Don't make a scene. Dad chimed in. Jackson, calm down. This is our house. Don't cause a fuss. I looked at my parents, feeling like I'd been slapped. Joking? Harassing someone is a joke? You've always defended him from the start. I turned to Drew, his eyes still defiant. Listen, Drew. If you touch Nicole again or do anything to hurt us, I'll let the law handle it. This isn't just a family matter anymore. Mom sobbed, clutching Drew as if he were the victim. Jackson, how can you be so cruel? He's your brother. Dad shook his head, his voice heavy with disappointment. You're tearing this family apart. But I didn't back down. Nicole stood beside me, holding my hand, her gaze steady. We're not the ones in the wrong, she said clearly. Drew needs to face consequences for his actions. I won't tolerate being harassed, and Jackson doesn't deserve this treatment. The backyard froze, the air thick with tension. Drew smirked, but I saw him step back as if realizing he'd gone too far. Fine, Jackson, he said coldly. Go call the cops. Let's see who wins. Then he turned and walked back into the house, leaving Nicole and me standing there under my parents' judgmental stares. On the drive back to Kansas City, I drove in silence. Nicole sat beside me, staring out the window, but her hand gripped mine tightly. The streetlights flashed by, illuminating her face, and I saw her eyes were red. Jax, she finally said, her voice hoarse. I'm not letting this go. Drew harassed me, and you know he won't stop. I want to press charges. I glanced at her, my heart tightening. Press charges? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Are you sure, Nicole? That's a big step. I knew she was right, but the word charges exploded in my mind like a bomb. Suing Drew meant pushing things to an irreparable point. He was my brother, no matter how much I hated what he'd done. And my parents. They'd never forgive me. Nicole turned to me, her gaze unwavering. Jax, I'm sure. Drew didn't just hurt you, he insulted me, touched me. That's not a joke. It's harassment. If we do nothing, he'll think he can keep going. Do you want to live in fear forever? Her words hit like a punch to the chest. I nodded, saying, okay, if you want to press charges, I'll support you. But inside, I was torn. I agreed with Nicole, but a part of me screamed, he's your brother, Jackson. Are you really going to ruin him? That night in our small apartment, I couldn't sleep. Nicole curled up beside me, her breathing steady, but I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought of Drew, of the days when we were kids, when he'd run after me in the yard, giggling as I pushed him on the swing. I thought of my parents, of Mom hugging me when I got a bad grade, or Dad teaching me to tie a tie before prom. Those memories now felt like sharp blades cutting deep. If I let Nicole sue Drew, my family would shatter. But if I did nothing, I'd lose myself, and maybe Nicole too. The next morning, I woke with dark circles under my eyes. Nicole had gone to work, leaving a note on the table. Jax, I love you. We'll get through this. I gave a faint smile, but my heart was heavy. I knew I needed advice, someone outside the situation who understood me without judgment. There was only one such person. Grandma Lillian. Grandma lived alone in a small house 2 hours from Kansas City in a windy suburb where prairies stretched endlessly. She was the only family member who always listened, never took sides, never imposed. As a kid, whenever I was stuck, I'd run to her, sitting on the old wooden chair in her kitchen, listening to her stories of her youth. She'd been a nurse in World War II, strong and resolute, yet full of compassion. I knew she'd give me answers, or at least help me see the path ahead. I drove alone, winding through country roads, the smell of hay and open land filling my nose. When I arrived, Grandma was watering her garden, her silver hair tied back, her smile radiant when she saw me. Jackson, you're here, she said, hugging me, her familiar lavender perfume making me want to cry. I followed her inside, sitting at the wooden table where I'd eaten her homemade cookies hundreds of times. Grandma, I'm stuck, I began, my voice trembling. I spilled everything. Drew's demand for a loan, destroying my laptop, slashing my tires, breaking the balcony door, and harassing Nicole at dinner. I told her about my parents' favoritism and Nicole's decision to press charges. I agree with her, but inside, I don't know if it's right. Drew's my brother, Grandma. If I sue him, Mom and Dad will disown me. But if I do nothing, I'm afraid I'll lose Nicole, lose myself. Grandma listened without interrupting, her eyes, though clouded with age, still sharp and deep. When I finished, she poured me a cup of tea and slid a plate of cookies toward me. "Jackson," she said, her voice slow but certain, "you've spent your life trying to please others. You've tried to be a good son, a good brother, but you've forgotten something. You deserve happiness too. Drew's chosen his path. He's not an innocent child anymore. He's an adult who must face the consequences of his actions." I bowed my head, choking up. "But Mom and Dad, they'll never forgive me. They always defend Drew." She placed her thin, warm hand on mine. "Your parents love both of you, but they're blind to Drew. They think spoiling him keeps him close, but they're hurting him. And they're hurting you. Jackson, you can't live your life fixing others' mistakes. You have to live for yourself, for your future, for the girl waiting for you out there." I thought of Nicole, her resolute eyes, how she stood up for herself. "But if I sue Drew, the family will fall apart," I said, almost whispering. Grandma shook her head. "Family isn't something that holds you through manipulation or pain. If your parents turn their backs, that's their mistake, not yours. Nicole, she's your real family, the one who'll stand by you no matter what. Don't you see, Jackson? She's your future." Her words pierced the fog in my mind like a ray of light. I recalled years of swallowing my pain, enduring my parents' favoritism, blaming myself for not being good enough to earn their love. But Grandma was right. I couldn't live to please them forever. Drew had crossed every line, and Nicole deserved protection. I deserved to live as my true self. "What should I do, Grandma?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She smiled, her eyes full of pride. "Fight for justice, Jackson, not out of anger, but because you know what's right. Stand by Nicole, protect her, and protect yourself. Don't fear losing those who don't value you. I'm here, always supporting you." I hugged her, tears streaming down my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter, not because everything was resolved, but because I knew what I had to do. I'd stand shoulder to shoulder with Nicole, not just to protect her, but to protect myself. Drew needed to learn his lesson, and I wouldn't let my parents' favoritism stop me anymore. Driving back through golden fields under the sunset, I felt a weight lift. When I reached the apartment, Nicole was waiting, her eyes worried but gentle. "Jax, you okay?" she asked. I pulled her into my arms, whispering, "I'm okay, and I'm with you. We'll press charges against Drew, no backing down." Nicole hugged me tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Jax. I know this is hard for you." I kissed her forehead, feeling a new strength inside. I'd chosen my path, one of justice, love, and myself. Whatever lay ahead, I knew I wasn't alone. The days after returning from Grandma's house, Nicole and I took action. We didn't want to give Drew more time to wreak havoc. Nicole, with the resolve of a woman who wouldn't back down, contacted a lawyer she knew from her advertising firm. "Jax, I spoke with Tiffany," she said, her voice steady. "She specializes in harassment and threat cases. We have enough evidence, security footage, threatening messages, and witnesses from the dinner." I nodded, but my heart was in turmoil. The thought of taking my brother to court felt like tearing out a piece of my soul. We met Tiffany on a Tuesday morning at her small but tidy law office in downtown Kansas City. Tiffany, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, listened to our story. I recounted Drew's actions. Throwing my laptop into the pool, slashing my tires, shattering the balcony door, and harassing Nicole at the family dinner. Nicole added details, her voice trembling as she described how Drew touched her and his crude remarks. Tiffany took meticulous notes, then looked up. "We have a strong case," she said. "Drew's actions constitute harassment, property damage, and threats. With the security footage and witnesses, we can request a restraining order and damages." Nicole squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes signaling we were doing the right thing. I nodded to Tiffany. "Do it," I said, my voice hoarse. "I want this to end." But as we left the office, I felt like I'd crossed a threshold with no return. I was suing my own brother, something I couldn't have imagined months ago. A few days later, Tiffany informed us the lawsuit had been filed in local court. Drew was charged with harassment, threats, and property damage. I sent a copy of the complaint to my parents with a short note. I didn't want this, but Drew needs to be held accountable. I hoped they'd understand even a little. I was wrong. That night, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Mom called first, her voice breaking with sobs. "Jackson, how could you do this? You're ruining your brother's future, don't you know that?" I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. "Mom, he destroyed my property, harassed Nicole. I can't let him keep doing this." She cried harder. "You're so selfish, Jackson. You're tearing the family apart. Drop the lawsuit, I'm begging you." Dad called right after, his voice seething. "Jackson, who do you think you are, suing your brother? You want the whole world to know our family's a mess? Drop it now or don't call me your father anymore." His words cut like a knife. I wanted to scream, to ask why they couldn't see what Drew had done. Instead, I said, "Dad, this isn't just family anymore, it's about justice." Then I hung up, my hands shaking. Nicole sat beside me, hugging me. "You did the right thing, Jax," she whispered. "They won't understand now, but you can't let them manipulate you anymore." I nodded, but the pain was sharp. I knew I was right, but my parents' rejection felt like losing a piece of my life. I remembered childhood days, Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Mom baking cookies after school. Now they saw me as the enemy, all because I dared to stand up. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere in our apartment was tense. Tiffany prepared the case, gathering more evidence. We collected statements from neighbors at Dad's birthday party who saw Drew throw the laptop. A coworker who'd noticed Drew lurking near the company parking lot agreed to testify. Security footage from our building clearly showed the tire slashing and the brick incident. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall of justice, but also a stab to my heart. Drew, meanwhile, didn't contact me directly, but Mom said he was panicking, scrambling to fix things. "He's scared, Jackson," she texted. "Drop the lawsuit. He promises to stop." I didn't reply. Drew's promises were worthless after everything he'd done. The night before the court date, I lay awake, watching Nicole sleep beside me. She was my light, the reason I'd chosen this path. But I was still afraid of my parents' eyes in the courtroom, of facing Drew not as a brother but as an adversary. I wondered, am I doing the right thing? Then I remembered Grandma's words. "Fight for justice, Jackson. For you. For Nicole." And I knew I couldn't turn back. The court date arrived faster than I expected. That morning, Kansas City's sky was gray, with a light drizzle mirroring my mood. I wore a suit the first time since my job interview 4 years ago. Nicole, in a simple blue dress, held my hand as we entered the courthouse. Tiffany led the way, carrying a thick briefcase. "We're ready," she said confidently. I nodded, but my heart pounded. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, with worn wooden benches and a stifling atmosphere. Drew sat on the other side in a white dress shirt, hair slicked with gel as usual. But his arrogant gaze was gone. He glanced at me, then quickly looked away. My parents sat behind him, Mom clutching a handkerchief, her eyes red. Dad stared at me, his gaze cold as a blade. I wanted to run to them, hug them, say I didn't want this. But Nicole squeezed my hand and I stood tall, trying to stay resolute. The judge, a middle-aged man with a deep voice, opened the session. Tiffany presented the charges: harassment, threats, and property damage. She played the security footage, showing Drew slashing my tires and throwing the brick through the balcony door. Murmurs filled the room as his face appeared clearly on the screen. Tiffany called witnesses. A neighbor from Dad's birthday party, Mrs. Linda, described how Drew threw my laptop into the pool. "He smirked afterward," she said firmly. "It didn't look like an accident." Nicole took the stand, her voice calm but steadfast. She recounted the dinner, how Drew touched her shoulder and made crude remarks. "I told him to stop, but he didn't take it seriously," she said. I felt threatened and unsafe. I watched her, pride mixing with pain. She was stronger than I'd ever realized. Drew's lawyer argued that he was merely impulsive, that his actions weren't meant to cause harm. "He's young, Your Honor," the lawyer said. "This is a family dispute, not a matter for court." But Tiffany countered sharply, highlighting Drew's pattern of deliberate behavior, from vandalism to harassment. When Drew took the stand, he kept his head down, his voice soft. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said. "I just wanted my brother's help, but he refused. I got mad and messed up." But when Tiffany pressed him about harassing Nicole, he stammered, unable to answer clearly. I saw Mom cry and Dad shake his head, but this time I felt no guilt. Drew was facing the consequences of his own actions. The judge called a recess. Nicole and I stepped into the hallway, avoiding my parents' eyes. Mom ran after me, grabbing my arm. "Jackson, can't you stop this? Drew's sorry. Do you really want him in jail?" I looked at her, my heart aching. "Mom, I didn't want this. But Drew has to learn to take responsibility. I can't let him keep hurting people." She sobbed harder and turned away. Dad said nothing, just stared at me like I was a stranger. The session resumed and the judge delivered the verdict. Drew was found guilty of harassment and property damage. His sentence was 6 months of probation, community service, and $5,000 in restitution to Nicole and me for the laptop, tires, and glass door. Drew bowed his head, silent. Mom wept, clinging to him, while Dad glared at me, his eyes full of resentment. As we left the courthouse, I felt both relief and anguish. The truth was out. Drew was held accountable, but my family was broken. Nicole hugged me, whispering, "You did the right thing, Jax." I nodded, but my eyes stung. I'd fought for justice, but the cost was steep. We left the courtroom in the biting chill of Kansas City, drizzle clinging to my suit jacket. Drew, with his 6-month suspended sentence, 100 hours of community service, and $5,000 in restitution to Nicole and me, walked out of the courthouse, shoulders slumped, his usual arrogance gone. Mom clung to him, sobbing as if he were the victim. Dad walked beside them, his gaze heavy, never once meeting my eyes. I wanted to run to them to say something to ease the pain, but Nicole gripped my hand tightly, pulling me toward the car. "Let's go, Jax," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "We need to go home." On the drive back, I drove in silence, my mind reeling. The court's ruling should have felt like a victory, but I was left hollow. Drew had paid a price, yes, but the cost to me was greater. I'd lost my parents, the memories of a family gathered around the BBQ grill, laughing in the backyard. Now, I only had Nicole, and though she was my world, I couldn't shake the ache of being abandoned by my own flesh and blood. A few days after the trial, Mom called. I hesitated before answering, my heart pounding. "Jackson," her voice was choked with tears, "you've ruined your brother. Do you know how much he's suffering? He's picking up trash in the park, being stared at like a criminal. Are you happy now?" Her words cut like knives. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. "Mom, I didn't want this, but Drew brought it on himself. He destroyed my property, harassed Nicole. I couldn't let him keep going." Mom sobbed harder. "You're selfish, Jackson. You think you're right? You've torn this family apart. I don't want to see your face again." She hung up. I stood in the living room, the phone slipping from my hand. Dad didn't call, but hours later he sent a curt text. "From now on, don't call me your father. You're no longer my son." I read the message over and over, feeling the ground collapse beneath me. They disowned me, all because I dared to seek justice. Nicole, just back from work, found me staring blankly on the sofa. She knelt in front of me, taking my hands. "Jax, what's wrong?" I handed her the phone, unable to speak. She read the text, her eyes welling up. Then she hugged me so tightly I could feel her heartbeat. "You're not wrong, Jax," she whispered. "I know it hurts, but you did the right thing. I feel safe because of you, because you didn't let Drew keep hurting us. I trust you more than ever." Her words were a flame warming me in the storm. I looked at her, seeing her unwavering eyes, and knew I'd chosen the right person to stand by. "Thank you," I said, my voice hoarse. "Without you, I don't know how I'd get through this." She smiled, kissing my forehead. "We're family, Jax. Real family doesn't turn its back on you." But her words couldn't erase the pain. That night I lay awake, thinking of my parents. I remembered afternoons when Dad taught me to throw a baseball, or Mom carefully sewing up my torn shirts. They'd once been my world, but now they chose blindness over truth. I knew I had to let go, but my heart was heavy. I'd lost them, perhaps forever. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work. The overpass project, delayed by the laptop incident, was finally completed after sleepless nights. My boss patted my shoulder, saying, "Jackson, you did great work. I know you've had a rough time, but you pulled through." I forced a smile, relieved. At least at work, I still had control. Nicole and I began preparing for the wedding. We chose a small restaurant by the Missouri River where twinkling lights reflected on the water. I pictured Nicole and me at the altar exchanging vows, but the absence of my parents stung. I sent them an invitation with a short note. "I hope you'll come. I still love you." There was no reply. I knew they wouldn't show, but I held on to a flicker of hope. Meanwhile, I heard about Drew from Grandma. She called, her voice sad but not judgmental. "He's doing his community service," she said. "But he hasn't changed, Jackson. He blames you. Blames the world, anyone but himself." I sighed. "Grandma, did I do the right thing?" Her reply was firm. "You did what you had to. Don't let the pain make you doubt yourself." Her words strengthened me, but the sadness lingered. I decided to cut off the toxic dependence on my parents. I stopped calling, texting, or trying to explain. They'd chosen their path, and I had to choose mine. Nicole became my anchor, the reason I got up each morning. She wasn't just my fiancée, she was my home, the place where I found peace in the storm. The wedding day arrived, a radiant autumn afternoon in Kansas City. The restaurant by the Missouri River was decorated simply but warmly, with white flowers and flickering candles. Nicole walked in wearing a white wedding dress, her radiant smile making me forget all my pain. I stood at the altar holding her hands, and as we exchanged vows, it felt like the world shrank to just the two of us. "I promise to always protect you, Nicole," I said, my voice choked with emotion. She smiled, tears glistening. "And I promise to always stand by you, Jax." Grandma sat in the front row, clapping enthusiastically, her eyes beaming with pride. A few friends and colleagues attended, laughing and offering blessings. But my parents weren't there. I'd held a faint hope they'd show up, that they'd realize I wasn't a traitor. But scanning the room and not seeing them, I knew I had to let go. That moment, I officially severed the ties to my toxic past. After the wedding, we moved to a small house in suburban Kansas City where I could hear the river flowing each night. I continued my engineering work, landing a bigger project, a new bridge spanning the Missouri River. Each line on the blueprint was a step forward, a way to rebuild my life. Nicole advanced in her career, and we started talking about having kids, about building our own family. But the pain lingered, a quiet shadow. Some nights I sat on the balcony staring at the river, thinking of my parents. I wondered if they ever regretted their choice, if they ever thought of me. I heard from Grandma that Drew had completed his community service but was still living recklessly, chasing get-rich-quick dreams. My parents continued to coddle him as if nothing had happened. I wasn't angry anymore, just sad. Sad that they couldn't see the truth, sad that I'd lost them. One evening, Nicole brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat beside me on the balcony. "What are you thinking, Jax?" she asked softly. I sighed, looking at her. "About my parents. I know I did the right thing, but it still hurts." She took my hand, smiling. "I know, but you chose to protect us, to stand for justice. You're the strongest man I've ever known." I kissed her, her warmth chasing away the cold inside. I knew I'd done the right thing, though it cost me my family. Sometimes, to protect those you love and uphold justice, you have to let go of things that were once your world. I'd lost my parents, but I had Nicole, Grandma, and myself, a Jackson who no longer tolerated, no longer feared. The Missouri River flowed, shimmering under the moonlight. I stood, pulling Nicole into my arms, and we looked ahead together. My life was now a new bridge, sturdy and full of hope, though the scars remained forever.